Picture this for a second. You've got a lone figure standing out there between two wooden posts, completely isolated from the rest of the team. For over a century, that was the goalkeeper. Their role was simple, singular, and frankly, completely detached from the beautiful game unfolding out on the pitch. Basically, just stop the ball from hitting the back of the net. But today? Well, that isolated figure has totally transformed into the absolute heartbeat of the team. The orchestrator, the primary playmaker. Welcome to this documentary explainer where we're going to trace the wild, cinematic journey of the goalkeeper position. We're talking about a crazy evolution here, from static shot stoppers just trying to survive in knee-deep mud to the highly technical, ball-playing maestros of modern football. We're going to look at exactly how a position defined by using your hands became utterly, completely obsessed with using your feet.
Okay, let's dive right into this stark contrast because it's pretty unbelievable. Picture your typical goalkeeper from, say, the 1960s. Think about the brutal conditions they were dealing with. They had these heavy, waterlogged leather footballs, stitched together, absorbing water like a literal sponge until they felt like cannonballs coming at your head. Keepers often didn't even wear gloves. And if they did, they were literally just woolly gardening gloves to stave off the frostbite. Their entire mandate on the pitch was just to catch those heavy balls, take a couple of steps, and hoof it as far up the field as humanly possible. Now, fast forward and look at 2024. Today's keeper is a completely different athletic specimen. I mean, they're tasked with breaking aggressive high presses, receiving passes inside their own 6-yard box with a massive striker breathing down their neck, and then surgically pinging 50-meter balls to instantly ignite a counterattack. It's a completely different sport.
So this all begs a pretty dramatic question. How exactly did the man between the sticks become arguably the most important tactical piece on the football pitch? How in the world did we go from a player whose footwork was just a complete afterthought to a player who's essentially expected to be a deep-lying midfielder who just happens to be wearing gloves? Look, this isn't just a story about changing tactics or shifting formations. No, this is the story of a position that faced a sudden, extinction-level event, adapted entirely on the fly, and evolved to survive in a much faster, far more ruthless modern game.
Section 1. Pioneers of the Box. The early mavericks of the game.
Before we really get into the modern game, we have to set the historical stage here, right? Because every revolution has its early mavericks. The goalkeeper position was formally introduced way back in 1871, a totally chaotic era where players could actually handle the ball all over the pitch. Wild, right? Then by the 1950s, a visionary named Gyula Grosics gave us the very first true glimpse of a sweeper keeper. Fast forward to 1963, and the legendary Lev Yashin wins the Ballon d'Or, taking the role to unprecedented heights. And then, 1992 happens. The passback rule shatters the foundation of the sport and rewrites the DNA of football forever.
Let's start by looking back at the 1950s with Hungary's famed Golden Team. Their super-aggressive 4-2-4 formation was built entirely around legendary striker Ferenc Puskás. But, as you can imagine, pushing that many players forward left massive, highly exploitable defensive holes at the back. This basically forced their goalkeeper, Gyula Grosics, who was fearlessly known as the Black Panther, to step way off his line. He'd actively come out of his box to tackle opposing strikers, acting almost like an extra defender. He figured out way before anyone else that rolling the ball to a teammate to keep possession was way smarter than just aimlessly kicking it into the sky and hoping for the best. Unorthodox for the time? Absolutely. Devastatingly effective? You bet.
And Grosic's style directly inspired another absolute titan of the era, Lev Yashin, the Black Spider. Standing at an imposing 6'2", draped head to toe entirely in black, Yashin was just an athletic anomaly. To this day, think about this, he remains the one and only goalkeeper in the entire history of football to win the Ballon d'Or, claiming the ultimate prize back in 1963. But what really made Yashin a true pioneer was his mind. Instead of just plucking corners out of the air to secure the ball and slow the game down to a crawl, he innovated. He'd intentionally punch the ball out into the path of his running teammates to launch lightning-fast counterattacks. He wasn't just reacting, he was actively dictating the pace of the game, launching massive offensives from right inside his own net.
Section 2. The rule that changed everything. The 1992 passback rule. Now, despite those early pioneers we just talked about, for decades, keepers still remain primarily just shot stoppers. But if you go back and watch footage from the 1990 World Cup or Euro 1992, you are going to see a sport in extreme danger of becoming incredibly, painfully boring. Teams would score a single goal, right? And then they'd engage in this endless, frustrating anti-football.
They would just pass the ball back to their goalkeeper, who'd casually pick it up with his hands, roll it out to a defender, wait for an attacker to sprint toward them, and then just pick it up again, over and over. Actually, Denmark rode this exact time-killing tactic all the way to winning Euro '92 with Peter Schmeichel. The beautiful game slowed to an absolute agonizing crawl.
So FIFA had absolutely no choice but to intervene. In 1992, they'd drop a bomb, the pass-back rule. Overnight, it became strictly illegal for a goalkeeper to pick up a deliberate pass kicked to them by a teammate. If your defender passed it back, you had to use your feet. For a whole generation of goalkeepers who had literally treated their feet as just, biological tools for standing upright, this was a total nightmare. Suddenly, a live ball at their feet felt like a ticking time bomb. But for the sport, it changed absolutely everything.
I can't stress this enough. This single rule change birthed the modern tactical game as we know it today. Suddenly, goalkeepers couldn't just survive on pure reflexes anymore. They had to actually play. It demanded real technical ability with both feet. And because of this newfound vulnerability at the back, high pressing suddenly became a highly viable, lethal tactical weapon. Opposing managers quickly realized, hey, if we aggressively charge at a panic-stricken goalkeeper, we can force a catastrophic turnover and bag an easy goal. It completely ended the era of purely reactive goaltending and basically forced keepers to become proactive participants in possession-based buildup.
Section 3. The rise of the sweeper keeper and the beginning of the modern era.
This modern era was perfectly defined by arguably the most influential keeper of the 21st century, Manuel Neuer. In the 2010s, playing for Bayern Munich and the German national team, Neuer wasn't just an extension of the defense. He effectively became the 11th outfield player. He played with this staggering, almost arrogant confidence, frequently crushing opposition counterattacks 30, sometimes even 40 yards off his own goal line. He somehow managed to combine the massive physical dominance of the 90s shot stoppers with the elite positional awareness and technique of a deep-lying midfielder. He literally stretched the geometry of the pitch and changed what managers realized was even possible out there.
And Neuer's massive success, it led to some ruthless tactical decisions across Europe's absolute elite clubs. When Pep Guardiola arrived at Manchester City, he inherited Joe Hart, a phenomenal, universally beloved shot stopper who had 4 golden gloves to his name. But Guardiola unceremoniously exiled him. Why? Simply because Hart wasn't a system distributor. Enter Ederson from Benfica. Now, what's hilarious and fascinating about Ederson is that he was actually an attack-minded left-back as a kid in Brazil who only went in goals simply because he was too lazy to track back and run. But that deep technical foundation, it made him exactly what Guardiola needed. A keeper who could surgically bypass a high press with a 50-meter laser pass, dropping it right onto a winger's boot.
Section 4. The data behind the play. Let's look at the analytics of this evolution. Look, it's super easy to romanticize this evolution with fun stories of individual brilliance, but the cold, hard analytics prove exactly how drastically this role has shifted. Take Mike Maignan at AC Milan. DribbleLab data shows that in the current era, Maignan attempts an incredible 31% of his passes from outside his penalty box. 31%! He is completely unconfined by his 18-yard area. If you compare that to just the 2018-2019 season, where a standard top-tier keeper like Edouard Mendy attempted just 16% of his passes from outside the box, the difference is staggering. The modern keeper is pushing aggressively high, acting as a vital release valve for the center backs.
And you really have to look at the tactical leap in passing quality over time. Opta data tracking goalkeeper pass accuracy across Europe shows an absolute explosion in technical proficiency. Just look at this. Between the 2007-8 season and 2023, Serie A keepers jumped from completing barely half their passes, sitting at 51%, to nearly 70%. La Liga in Spain saw a massive, nearly identical spike, rocketing from 46% to over 65%. Keepers are no longer just shutting their eyes and clearing the ball into the grandstands in a pure panic. No way. They are vital, incredibly composed possession recyclers who are essential to their team's entire attacking structure.
They're also touching the ball way more frequently than ever before. In the Premier League, the average passes attempted per goalkeeper per game jumped from 15 up to over 20 in less than a decade. And over in the German Bundesliga, keepers average nearly 24 passes a match. The goalkeeper is quite literally being used as tactical bait now, standing completely still with the ball at their feet, drawing the opposition press in until the very last millisecond, only to rapidly shift the ball to an open teammate, instantly taking 3 attacking players completely out of the game. It's a high-wire act, and it's brilliant.
And the actual type of pass being played, that has fundamentally changed too. The traditional, desperate Route 1 long hoof up the field, yeah, that's dying out. Today, 64% of all goalkeeper distribution consist of short to medium, highly strategic passes designed to just slice right through opposition lines. Only 36% are long passes of 32 meters or more. And here's the kicker. Even those long passes aren't just panic clearances into the void anymore. They are pinpoint, targeted weapons specifically aimed at exploiting the vast spaces left behind by a high-pressing team.
Section 5. Expert Analysis. Where do we go from here and what happens next?
So, where does this leave the position today? Well, listen to Peter Schmeichel, the physically imposing giant who practically invented the modern fast counterattack with his massive long throws back in the 90s. Yet even he looks at the current game with absolute awe. Speaking about Manchester City's Ederson, Schmeichel said, "He is taking playing with your feet to the next level. I've never seen anything like that." Think about that. When a historical legend of that magnitude is stunned by a modern player's technical mastery, you know for a fact the game has fundamentally, irreversibly changed.
To really understand the future of this position, we have to look at how we're developing the very next generation. Top goalkeeper coach Fabian Ott points out that modern academies are completely overhauling their training philosophies. They are literally training young goalkeepers as outfield players first. At ages 9, 10, or 11 in elite academies right now, there often isn't even a fixed goalkeeper anymore. They just put gloves on everyone, but force the future keepers into the midfield to participate in high-speed passing rondos. They are baking elite technical ability right into their muscle memory from day one.
But as we know, football tactics are entirely cyclical, and we're already starting to see a fascinating counter-movement. Lately, there's been mounting frustration with teams obsessively forcing this playing out from the back style, which, let's be honest, occasionally leads to catastrophic, highly exposed errors. Simultaneously, set pieces have become incredibly dominant, deciding super tight matches at the absolute highest levels. Because of this, master tacticians are adapting yet again. To counter massive, physically imposing teams, coaches are returning to giants. We're seeing a renewed demand for huge 6'5" physical specimens like Gianluigi Donnarumma, who can utterly dominate the airspace, absorb contact, and just punch away danger in terrifyingly crowded penalty boxes.
Which leaves us with this final, highly provocative thought to chew on. In our relentless modern pursuit of the perfect 11th outfield player, have we actually sacrificed the pure art of the save for this total obsession with the pass? As the pendulum inevitably swings back toward physically dominant shot stoppers who can just utterly command the air, the next phase of this tactical evolution is going to be incredibly thrilling to watch. Take these insights with you next time you're watching a match this weekend, and keep your eyes fixed on the player standing between the sticks. You might just see the future of the game unfolding right in front of you.